Let's talk about the third subtype of ENTJ, the normalizing ENTJ subtype. What are the characteristics, career choices, and challenges this subtype faces?
So this could also be a subtype that is not uncommon in people's minds, like stereotypically for ENTJs, although this type might mistype as an ESTJ potentially, because they're a little bit better at sort of blending in with the rest of society. They're normalizing. And so they are they enjoy a more settled traditional life. They are usually steady. They have steady jobs. They are usually tapped into community activities. So this is an ENTJ that is like sort of your responsible citizen version of an ENTJ. And they're more sort of chart the course in like Linda Barron's vernacular. They are linear, logical. They have a step-by-step approach to getting tasks done. They have a quiet reliance on their intuition and creativity with usually a pretty strong concern with how things are going to roll out with human implication. So unlike the dominant subtype that tends to automate anything human-oriented and just take over things if they can get away with it, the normalizing is a little bit more tapped into the implications of how these decisions are going to impact people. So that's why they're more tapped into community. They care about how it's all going to roll out for individuals. And because of that, they are more responsible, right? They have like a responsible bent towards all of their sort of what they're going to be doing with their lives.
This might sound like I'm really parsing words, but I just want to know, is it about community or is it about society? Which one is the normalizing more attuned to? Because I know when we talk about the harmonizing, it's all about a lot of people focus. So with this, did you use community deliberately, or is that just the word that came up for you?
Well, I think they're more tapped into general human welfare.
Okay.
And I think the practicality of them probably makes them more community oriented, because that's, it's like you clean up your house first, right? There's like a concern for people, and that's where they can show that concern.
So in my mind, I make a distinction between community is more local and just the people around me, and society is like broader, like more global or national. And you would say this normalizing is more focused on the people in my town, my community, the industry I'm in.
Yeah.
The people in my close proximity.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they might be the ones, and we'll talk about career choice in a moment, but they might be the ones that go into like local politics.
Gotcha.
Right. They are a more introverted version of an ENTJ as well. So they might also believe they have INTJ preferences, possibly even ISTJ preferences. And so they are a more thoughtful version of an ENTJ as a general rule. And they really prefer quiet time whenever they're integrating new information. So instead, like the creative subtype and the dominant subtype, they tend to act faster. Whether or not the creative is acting in a specifically like executive way, it's more like they're just responding to the situation because they're seeking all of those great experiences. So they collate creative ideas much faster. The normalizing ENTJ, when they take in new information, they want to sit with it for a while. Yeah. They really want to understand its implications. They really want to run those simulations, really understand the long game. They're just a lot more reflective and thoughtful about the information that they're parsing out. And of course, that alters the kinds of careers they're going to be attracted to. They won't want something that's going to require fast reaction times from them or really fast responses more than they're comfortable with, because they're going to want to make sure that they're being careful about the information.
Yeah, we're using thoughtful. I mean, I guess you could use it carefully, but we're also using thoughtful, and that's the attunement. And over action, it's thoughtfulness.
Yes, exactly. And so everything in their life is going to reflect this. It's kind of more of they're looking for like sort of calm partners, calm environments, right? Something that's a little bit more steady. The home life is real steady. And but they're still ENTJ, so they're still interested in ENTJ things. So there's going to always be an attraction to like the technical arts, electronics, mechanics, music, those kinds of things, and the social sciences. So anthropology, psychology, these are still going to be interested to ENTJs. They usually are good at holding more traditional jobs and job roles. And so you're going to see them as more general managers than maybe somebody who's like trying to take over, like the CEO position. They're going to be more okay with holding a general manager position because they don't quite have that ambition, in part because they're thinking about the implications of how their actions are rolling out. So they have a little bit more, you can almost call it like impulse control. they usually are found in larger institutions because that's where the most security lives. And so unlike the creative subtype, which is going to be more entrepreneurial, this is a less entrepreneurial style of ENTJ. This is one that's going to look for large institutions that, really can use their talents. So some of the specific jobs they might go for are things like department director in industries like banking, education, energy, medicine, areas that require a lot of patience and maneuvering through regulations, which they're actually pretty good at, and working with sort of the details on how things are impacting people. So almost like the politics of it all, right? Those are all going to be things that attract this type. So like technical managers, researchers in the social sciences, as mentioned, like anthropology or psychology, or maybe even, innovative research projects could probably be very interesting to somebody of this type. Data analyst. Most ENTJs say things like they wouldn't really be good data analysts, but the normalizing ENTJ is actually going to be quite well suited for it compared to maybe some of the other styles. And then anything in mentorship, right? There's that leadership capacity still as an ENTJ. So anything that would fall under the realm of mentor, like a teacher in almost any capacity, or a coach in almost any capacity, or a consultant, right? Somebody who is in a position where they can use the skills that they've developed over a long lifetime and all that thoughtfulness to really help guide other people into not making the same mistakes, or maybe ameliorating the system that they're a part of. Anything that helps them take all of the information that they've compiled over a lifetime of this thoughtfulness and really help other people improve upon their systems.
Yeah, the word that comes up for me is stewardship. It's like you come into something, you ameliorate it, you move it to the next level, you steward it forward. It's not so much, and that's a distinction from maybe the dominant ENTJ, who's all about leadership and get this done and make a mark on this thing, create something like bigger and newer and more developed or whatever. This is more like tweaking and refining, very calibrative and stewardship focused.
Yeah. And usually they have, because their career is a little bit more traditional, they're not, they still have ENTJ preferences. So there's going to be a part of them that's seeking something more meaning oriented, bigger picture implication oriented. So oftentimes they have, even if this is not part of the career, and if you are a normalizing ENTJ, this is something that you might want to take note of.
Yeah.
There's almost always an interest in something on the side in the arts or in philosophy or in spirituality or in something like kind of that helps them tap into these bigger existential questions and what it all means and one's place in all of it. I think that that's something that normalizing ENTJs need to make sure that they're giving themselves permission to do, and not just have to be a traditional, somebody who does a day job or has even a really impressive career, but also has this component on the side that really fuels their intuition.
Hobbies are super important for this subtype. And let's go a level deeper. The neurotransmitter of choice is serotonin for normalizing subtypes. And so the normalizing ENTJ, serotonin, is what they're focused on. Let's talk about the attunement of those two cognitive functions, effectiveness and perspectives.
So the normalizing subtype is the opposite of the creative. So for the type, the geeks, right? I'm supposed to warn everybody. It means that the judging function is going to be the analytic or have an analytic preference, and the perceiving function will have a holistic preference. So the opposite of the creative.
Yeah.
So in this case, it would be extroverted thinking or effectiveness that is analytic. There is a certainty about how things should be set up. But the intuitive function, introverted intuition, or what we call perspectives, that's the one that's a little bit more open frame. That's the one that's like less certain. It's a little bit more holistic and receiving and thinking about things in a broader way.
Yeah.
Which is why I mentioned if this ENTJ doesn't have that woven into their career, it's going to be a need of theirs to have that intuition nourished in that way, and like the broader spectrum of like I mentioned, existential questions.
So if you're identifying with a normalizing subtype of ENTJ, and we don't have time to unpack this, you can go look up information for this or look into the ENTJ owner's manual to get more data around it. But you are probably the most likely of the four subtypes to enter into what's called a loop and get stuck there. I mean, everybody's going to do that, but avoiding that intuition is probably, this is the type that's going to have to make a deliberate choice to go toward their intuitive function of introverted intuition or perspectives more than the others.
Well,
that's basically what you're saying. You're saying you got to pick a hobby, something to deliberately put you there because your job might steer you away from it, is what I hear you saying.
Well, I actually, not to give too much pushback, but I would actually say that the dominant and the creative are more in danger of getting into loops. I would say that the normalizing is more likely to use their intuition exclusively in the career and in their job.
So you're not warning against getting into a loop altogether. You're saying that you might just have one note for your intuition. You need to broaden it, not develop it wholesale.
Right.
Although you might need to do that as well, but broaden it outside of your career.
Yeah. Give yourself permission because it has that holistic preference. Give your intuition the permission it needs to explore a vast array of intuitive pursuits, which a normalizing subtype might not give themselves permission to do because that might feel a little woo-woo, or that might feel a little weird or off,
or impractical.
Why would
I do that? It's not related to my career.
Right, but the advantage is that the information that one picks up in a pursuit of art and philosophy and spirituality and all of these bigger questions actually ends up getting funneled back into how they manage and lead people if they're in those positions.
Yeah.
Like it helps them sort of see a bigger picture and inspire or motivate other people to take right action.